And the analyst who's been setting the agenda with all of that satellite imagery is Natahn Ruser, who's one of Australia's best-known intelligence analysts and experts with the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, and he joins me live from Sydney. Thank you very much, Natahn, for speaking to India today exclusively. Can you tell us what's going on? The big focus is on Pangong. Between the images that you put out last week and this week, it looks like things have really escalated, with Chinese positions not just on the ridgeline, but actually advancing downhill towards Indian positions.
If we look at recent satellite imagery, it's clear that China has been massively expanding its presence between in the disputed area of Pangong Lake in the last month or so. So in about May, they started significant construction in basically the area between fingers 4 and 5. And since then, that construction has just expanded and grown quite significantly.
Natahn, can you tell us about the nature of these positions? Are these permanent structures that you've seen, not tents, but actually concrete structures that you're looking at?
They look pretty permanent. They're not, unlike in the Galwan Valley, they're not tents. They're solid structures. They're proper buildings, and in many cases they're actually defensive trench lines around the building. So it seems like a pretty significant position. What I haven't seen is any artillery or any heavy weaponry or tanks, but the scale of like hundreds of structures are being constructed there. And overall it sort of just paints a picture of, looks like a permanent position that plans to change the status quo going forward, not just be used as part of be used in the political process going forward.
You know, like you said, these permanent positions, some of them are pillboxes, and like we explained to our viewers, pillboxes are basically concrete structures with a small opening for weapons of any kind, including possibly even heavy weapons. Now, many of those structures that you see over there, Natahn, are actually these pillboxes. Could they be clear? But you haven't seen actual weaponry coming there, but are they prepared now? Is this preparation to bring in offensive equipment like guns and other stuff?
It could well be. I can't really speculate about what China plans to do with the region, but a long part of their doctrine in that sort of Tibetan Plateau region is to have the infrastructure in place so that if they needed thousands of troops at any location at once, they could do that very quickly. So I think a lot of this is designed to make that easier, to make that mission easier. But in itself, I haven't seen any attempts to be offensive yet, beyond the offensive posturing of putting up positions in what previously was only a patrolled area, and including in some cases positions across into the Indian-controlled side of the ridgeline.
You say that these images show the clearest transgression by China, and the clearest attempt by China, Natahn, to actually change the status quo. You say that China is advancing downhill by around 330 meters. This is pretty alarming stuff, given that the Indian position is just down the ridge from there, as we can see in those images.
Yes, so generally when we're looking at Ladakh, China hasn't encroached on the line of actual control. And they haven't done that in the Galwan Valley or the Hot Springs area, or at least in setting up positions. Patrols are probably a different story. However, in Pangong, there's a bit of more sort of complexity there because of the conflicting perceptions of what the LAC is and where the LAC lies. So previously, India has had kept positions in the disputed territory, but China hasn't. But China has patrolled there regularly, and now China has moved in. But when you treat Finger 4, which is sort of cuts down the middle of the lake almost, as the separating geographic feature between Indian territory and Chinese territory, this is where China has set up what look like permanent positions, or at least fortified positions, on the Indian side of that generally agreed upon dividing line.
Another interesting thing that you said, Natahn, when you were putting out some of this imagery, is that if the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi wants to respond to what happened in Galwan, through some kind of visible action, it is your view that what's happening in Pangong would be the place to actually hit back as far as India is concerned, because it is here where the threat and the encroachments are, most glaring, and therefore any kind of response from India would perhaps be justifiable. That's what you're saying?
Well, I'm certainly not suggesting that India does take up any response, and that's entirely up to the Indian military to decide.
Yeah.
What I was mostly saying was that these positions are ones that are in what's long been Indian controlled territory, whereas retaliation anywhere else would be firing across the border. This is the only location in all of Ladakh that there are permanent structures in what's long been considered the Indian side of the border.
Are you Nathan? Are you picking up anything on in the Galwan Valley as well after the June 15th incident?
So there's been limited satellite imagery from after the June the 15th incident. They show what appears to be sort of the frontline positions of both China and India having been at least partially dismantled.
Yeah.
But India, at least on the morning of the 16th, was pushed right up to the LAC in terms of a casualty collection point. It doesn't look like any permanent positions, but they appeared to have temporary structures that they were used to do medical treatment in the next day. After that, it's sort of hard to see because the only satellite imagery I've seen is from the 16th.
Yeah.
Not since then. Not in the 6 days since then.
Yes.
But there was a strong presence of Chinese transport vehicles, and it's unclear from that whether that's reinforcing or whether that's sort of helping to dismantle from the front lines, or a mixture of both.
One final question, Nathan, and I know you're busy. You're an avid China watcher, so I just want to zoom out a little bit and ask you, what your assessment is about China's intentions and actions all along the line of actual control, from Galwan to the northern areas, Depsang to the hot springs and Pangong. How would you categorize their intentions?
It's always risky to forecast China's intentions, but I think it's safe to say that they're sort of been looking to be more aggressive on the international stage mostly since this year. And that corresponds to what they're doing in Ladakh, sort of basically doing actions which don't necessarily cross any threshold of violence or retaliation, but in turn change the status quo on the ground. That's what they try to do in Auckland as well. They try to do that in a lot of places in the South China Sea as well.
Yes.
So this is just a continuation of what China's been doing to sort of slowly expand its territorial claims for the last 10 years. But this just happened to sort of erupt in quite a lot of violence. Right. I don't think either the Chinese side or the Indian side meant for there to be at least that many deaths.
And since I have your attention, Nathan, I'm going to go ahead and ask you one final question, which is on the issue of air power. We saw the Indian Air Force sort of flaunt some of its fighter jets and attack helicopters in Ladakh last week. But there appears to be some kind of air power movement as far as China is concerned, whether you're talking about Tibet, whether you're talking about, there are rumors of jet movements of China in the northern areas as well. Are you picking up anything on the air power front?
I haven't really been tracking any air power deployments, or really, I haven't been looking much at any deployments a long way back from the front line, so I'm not really sure I had a lot there.
Thanks very much, Nathan, for joining me on that story.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.